please, please don't go." The 5-year-old's screams brought the entire Greenville-Spartanburg International Airport terminal to a complete standstill. Jujin's small fists clutched the black woman's denim jacket like her life depended on it, her face red and streaked with tears that wouldn't stop falling. Her father stood frozen just a few feet away, watching his daughter fall completely apart over a stranger she'd met only hours ago on a plane. An Jae-sung was one of Korea's most feared men. He'd stared down rivals without flinching. He'd made grown men weep with just a look. But right now, watching his baby girl sob her heart out, he looked absolutely helpless. Security guards exchanged nervous glances across the terminal. Nobody wanted to get involved when An Jae-sung was in the picture. The expensive tailored suit, the cold expression that hadn't cracked once, the 4 men in black standing at attention behind him like silent statues. Everything about this man screamed danger. The woman, Afeoma, looked just as confused as everyone else watching this scene unfold in real time. "Sweetie, I have to go," she said gently, her warm Nigerian accent making the words sound softer than they were. She tried to pry the small fingers from her clothes. "My Uber is waiting outside. I promise you'll be okay." "No," Jujin's voice cracked as she sobbed even harder. "You promised we'd play more. You promised you'd teach me how to braid like you. You promised." Jae-sung stepped forward, and for the first time in years, his voice carried something other than command. It carried something he hadn't let anyone hear in a very long time. Desperation. "Please," he said quietly to Afeoma, his dark eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Just give me 5 minutes to talk to you. Please." If you're sitting there wondering how a heartbroken Nigerian woman on vacation became the only person who could calm a Korean mafia boss's impossible daughter, then you're exactly where you need to be. Drop a raised fist in the comments if you're ready for this story, and don't forget to subscribe because what happens next will change all of their lives forever. But let me take you back. Let me show you how we got here, because this story, it didn't start at an airport. It started 5 days earlier in Abuja, Nigeria, with a woman whose heart had just been shattered into 1,000,000 pieces. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. Effioma Christopher sat on her bedroom floor, surrounded by 12 years of memories she was trying to fit into a suitcase that suddenly felt too small for all the pain. 12 years. That's how long she'd been with Chidi. 12 years of planning a future that would never come. 12 years of being told, "Soon, my love, soon," every single time she brought up marriage. 12 years of family gatherings where his cousin, Adaeze, always seemed to be around, laughing just a little too hard, at his jokes, touching his arm just a little too long. "She's just my cousin," Chidi had always said with that charming smile that used to make Ifeoma's heart flutter. "You're being paranoid, Ify. You know you're the only one for me." Until 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, Ifeoma had decided to surprise him with his favorite meal. She'd left work early, stopped by the market for fresh ingredients, and showed up at his apartment with her key and a smile on her face. That smile died the second she opened the door. Adaeze was there, wearing nothing but Chidi's shirt, cooking breakfast in his kitchen like she owned the place, like she belonged there. "It's not what it looks like," Chidi had stammered, coming out of the bedroom with wet hair and panic written all over his face. But it was exactly what it looked like. Turns out, cousin Adaeze wasn't even his cousin. They'd been seeing each other for 2 years. 2 whole years of lies while Efeoma planned their future, picked out wedding colors in her head, imagined their children. 2 years while she was busy being faithful and stupid. Efeoma threw a folded dress into her suitcase with more force than necessary, trying not to let the tears come again. She'd cried enough. She cried so much these past 3 weeks that her best friend Ella had finally staged an intervention. "You need to leave Abuja," Ella had said firmly, already pulling up flight options on her phone. "Go somewhere you've never been. Somewhere far away where nothing reminds you of that lying bastard. South Carolina has beaches, mountains, good food. Just go, Ify. Go heal." So here she was, packing for 2 weeks in a place she'd only seen in American movies, trying to convince herself that running away wasn't weakness, it was survival. Her phone buzzed on the bed. Another text from Chidi. Chidi. Iffy, please, let me explain. It was a mistake. I love you. I've always loved you. A D's means nothing. Ifeoma stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it without responding. She'd heard enough explanations to last her a lifetime. Tomorrow, she'd be on a plane to America. Tomorrow, she'd start the process of forgetting that Chidi ever existed. At least, that was the plan. But God had other plans entirely. The Seoul to South Carolina flight was packed when Ifeoma finally settled into her window seat. She adjusted her headscarf, pulled out the novel she'd been meaning to read for months, and thanked God for the empty middle seat next to her. She'd spent 3 days in Seoul visiting her friend Christy, who'd moved there years ago for work. It was supposed to be a quick stopover before heading to South Carolina, a chance to clear her head with someone who understood the pain of Chidi's betrayal, but Christy had practically pushed her onto this flight. You need more than 3 days in my couch, Ngozi had said firmly at the airport. Go to South Carolina like you planned. Heal properly, and don't come back until you remember what it feels like to smile again. 18 hours of peace. 18 hours to just exist without thinking about Chidi, or heartbreak, or wasted years. She should have known better than to think peace would last. Appa, I want the window. A small tornado in a pink dress and light-up sneakers appeared in the aisle, dragging a tall, clearly exhausted Korean man behind her. Jujin, we talked about this already, the man said in English, with just a hint of an accent, his voice firm but tired. You get motion sickness by the window. You're sitting in the middle. But I want to see the clouds. The little girl's voice was pure determination. You'll see them just fine from the middle seat. Jujin's lower lip trembled like someone had just told her Christmas was canceled. That's not the same, and you know it, Appa. Ifeoma bit back a smile despite her determination to stay in her bubble of isolation. The little girl reminded her so much of her niece back home. Excuse me, the man said, his dark eyes meeting Ifeoma's briefly. Polite, but guarded. May we get past? Of course. Ifeoma stood up to let them through, catching a whiff of expensive cologne as the man passed. He lifted his daughter into the middle seat with the kind of practiced ease that comes from doing something 1,000 times before, then folded his tall frame into the aisle seat. Everything about him screamed money and control. The perfectly tailored dark slacks, the crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up just so, the watch on his wrist that probably cost more than a mountain. Everything except the Hello Kitty backpack he was trying to stuff under the seat in front of him. Jujin immediately started kicking her feet, making her light-up shoes flash pink and purple in a rhythm that probably would have annoyed most people. She stared openly at Ifeoma with the kind of shameless curiosity only children can get away with. Your hair is pretty, Jujin announced suddenly. Jujin, her father warned, not looking up from his phone. Don't bother the lady. I'm not bothering. I'm complimenting. Jujin turned back to Ifeoma with wide, earnest eyes. It really is pretty, like a princess crown. Ifeoma touched her braided updo self-consciously. She'd spent 3 hours in the salon getting it done, trying to do something nice for herself before this trip. Thank you, sweetheart. Your shoes are very pretty, too. Jujin's entire face lit up like she'd just won the lottery. She immediately stuck her foot straight up in the air to show off the flashing lights. They're brand new. Appa bought them for me because my old nanny said I was being bad, but I wasn't being bad at all. She just didn't understand that I don't like strawberry yogurt, I like banana yogurt, and she kept giving me strawberry even though I told her like 100 times, and then she got mad when I wouldn't eat it. But how is that my fault when I told her? Jujin. The father's voice was gentle but carried clear authority. Breathe, baby. The little girl took an exaggerated breath that made her whole body puff up, then grinned at Ifeoma like they were sharing the world's best secret. Her father met Ifeoma's eyes over Jujin's head with an expression that clearly said, I'm so sorry, and this is my entire life all at once. I'm Ifeoma, she offered, surprising herself. So much for 18 hours of peace and isolation. On Jae-sung, the man replied with a slight nod that somehow managed to be both polite and distant, then gesturing to the bouncing ball of energy beside him. And this is Jujin, who has apparently forgotten every single manner we practiced before this flight. I have manners, Jujin protested with all the indignation a 5-year-old could muster. I said her hair was pretty. That's good manners. Ifeoma couldn't help it. She laughed. A real genuine laugh that came from somewhere deep in her chest, the first one she'd managed in 3 weeks. Well, I think you have excellent manners, Jujin. The little girl absolutely beamed. Jae-sung's expression softened just slightly, something like relief flickering across his features before that controlled mask settled back into place. Thank you for your patience. It's been a very long day. Long week, Ifeoma corrected with a knowing smile that held more truth than she meant to share. Something passed between them in that brief moment. Two tired people at the absolute end of their ropes, just trying to make it through a long flight without falling apart. The plane began to taxi down the runway. Do you have snacks? Jujin asked suddenly, leaning toward Ifeoma with hopeful eyes. Jujin, her father's voice carried a warning edge. What? It's just a question. Jujin gestured dramatically at her father. Appa only packed boring snacks. Seaweed and crackers. That's so boring. Ifeoma bit back another laugh. Well, I might have some chin-chin in my bag. Have you ever had chin-chin before? Jujin's eyes went absolutely huge. What's chin-chin? Is it candy? It's a Nigerian snack. Crunchy, a little bit sweet, very good. Want to try some? The little girl nodded so enthusiastically, her pigtails bounced up and down. Jae-sung opened his mouth, probably to protest politely, but Ifeoma was already reaching into her carry-on bag. Her mother had insisted she pack some, saying, You never know when you'll want a taste of home. Ifeoma hadn't had the heart to tell her that she was trying to get away from everything that felt like home. She pulled out a small Ziploc bag filled with the golden brown fried dough pieces and held it out. Just a little bit, Jae-sung said quietly, his eyes meeting hers. She hasn't had dinner yet. Just a little bit, Ifeoma agreed, handing Jujin exactly 2 small pieces. The girl popped one in her mouth immediately, chewed thoughtfully for a moment, and then her entire face transformed with pure joy. Appa, you have to try this. It's so good. She thrust the second piece toward her father. It's crunchy and sweet, and it tastes like happy. For the first time since sitting down, Jae-sung smiled. Just a small one. Barely there, but it completely changed his face. Made him look younger, less burdened, almost approachable. Maybe later, princess. You eat it. Jujin turned back to Ifeoma with eyes full of hope and determination. Can I please have more? I'll share something with you. I have gummies in my bag. They're strawberry, but I'll give them to you anyway because you're being so nice. Jujin, you can't just ask people for their food. It's really okay, Ifeoma interrupted gently, meeting Jae-sung's eyes. She saw exhaustion there, the kind of bone-deep tiredness that comes from carrying too much for too long. Honestly, it's a very long flight. We might as well be friends, right? Jae-sung studied her face for a long moment, like he was trying to figure out whether she was being genuine or just polite. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him because he nodded slowly. Thank you. Truly. And just like that, Ifeoma's plan for 18 hours of peaceful isolation died a quiet death. 3 hours into the flight, Jujin had talked Ifeoma's ear off about absolutely everything under the sun. Her favorite color was purple, but only light purple, not dark purple, because dark purple was too serious. Her least favorite food in the entire world was strawberry yogurt, obviously, because it was slimy and pink, and why would anyone want to eat something slimy? Her last nanny had quit because she said I asked too many questions. But Ifeoma, how else am I supposed to learn things if I don't ask? And her Appa was the best Appa in the whole entire world, even though he was too serious sometimes, and he needs to smile more. Jae-sung had dozed off in the aisle seat about an hour ago, his head tilted back against the headrest, finally looking less like a man carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Is your Appa sleeping? Ifeoma whispered, glancing over. Jujin looked at her father, then nodded solemnly. He doesn't sleep very much. He has important business. She said important business in a very grown-up voice, clearly mimicking something she'd heard before. What kind of business does he do? Jujin shrugged her small shoulders. I don't really know. Grown-up stuff, boring stuff with meetings and phones that ring all the time. She brightened suddenly, reaching into her Hello Kitty backpack. Do you want to color with me? I have a whole book. I would absolutely love to color with you. They colored in comfortable silence for a while. Jujin made the sky bright purple and the grass orange, and Ifeoma carefully stayed inside the lines of a butterfly, wondering when she'd stopped letting herself be creative like this. Ifeoma? Do you have a little girl? The question hit Ifeoma right in the chest, stealing her breath for a second. She'd imagined it once upon a time. Children, with Chidi. A daughter with his smile, a son with her stubborn chin. A whole future that turned out to be built on lies. No, sweetheart, I don't have any children. Do you want one? Ifeoma's throat felt tight. Maybe someday. Jujin studied her with those serious dark eyes that seemed too wise for a 5-year-old. I think you'd be a really good mom. You're nice, and you share your snacks without making a big deal about it. And you don't get mad when I color the sky purple instead of blue. Thank you, Jujin. That's one of the sweetest things anyone has ever said to me. The little girl went back to her coloring, but after a moment, she added very quietly, almost like she didn't want to say it out loud. My mom didn't want me. Ifeoma's heart cracked right down the middle. Oh, sweetheart. It's okay, Jujin said quickly, still not looking up from her coloring book. Her little hand moved the crayon back and forth with more force than necessary. Appa told me she just wasn't ready to be a mom. Some people aren't ready, but Appa wanted me. He says I'm his best thing in the whole world. Ifeoma reached over and gently squeezed Jujin's small hand. Your Appa is absolutely right. You are definitely the best thing. Jujin looked up then, and her eyes were shining with unshed tears that she was clearly fighting hard to keep from falling. Then, without any warning at all, she leaned her head against Ifeoma's shoulder. You smell nice, she whispered, like flowers and cookies mixed together. Ifeoma felt her own eyes start to sting. It's shea butter and vanilla oil. I really like it. They stayed like that for a long time, Jujin coloring with her head resting on Ifeoma's shoulder, Ifeoma pretending she wasn't getting emotional over a child she'd literally just met. When Jae-sung woke up about an hour later, that's exactly how he found them. His impossible daughter, the one who'd run off 7 nannies in 2 years, was nestled comfortably against a complete stranger. Ifeoma had one arm wrapped loosely around Jujin's shoulders while she gently braided a small section of the girl's hair, and Jujin was chattering away happily about everything and nothing. Something in Jae-sung's chest tightened painfully. 7 nannies. 7 different women who couldn't handle Jujin's energy, her endless questions, her deep need for real connection. 7 women who saw his daughter as nothing more than a difficult job and a paycheck. And here was this stranger on a plane, treating Jujin with the kind of gentle, patient attention he'd almost forgotten existed in the world. Appa, look. Jujin noticed he was awake and sat up excitedly. Ifeoma is teaching me how to braid, and we colored a whole picture together. And she let me try her lotion, and it smells amazing, Appa. You have to smell it. Jae-sung met Ifeoma's eyes over his daughter's head, and something unspoken passed between them. Thank you, he said quietly, and somehow those 2 simple words carried the weight of everything he couldn't say. She's absolutely wonderful, Ifeoma replied, and she meant every single word. Jujin beamed, soaking up the praise like flowers soaking up sunlight. Comment, chin chin, if you're already loving the bond between these 3. And listen, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, what are you even waiting for? Hit that subscribe button right now because this flight is just the beginning. And I promise you, things are about to get very, very complicated at that airport. Keep watching. 14 hours later, when the plane finally touched down at Greenville-Spartanburg International Airport, Ifeoma's entire body ached. Her back hurt. Her eyes felt gritty from the recycled air, and she was ready to collapse into her Airbnb bed for approximately the next 12 hours. But she'd also just experienced the best flight of her entire life. Jujin had fallen asleep on her shoulder, somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, her small body warm and trusting in a way that made Ifeoma's heart hurt. Jae-sung had carefully draped his expensive suit jacket over his daughter like a blanket, and Ifeoma had caught him watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. Something soft, something almost like longing. They'd talked too during the quiet hours, when Jujin finally wore herself out completely. Nothing too deep or too personal. Just safe topics that strangers on planes talk about. He was in South Carolina for business meetings. 3 weeks, maybe less if things went well. She was there to clear her head. Vacation, healing, starting over. Neither of them mentioned what they were running from, but Ifeoma had a strong feeling they both had ghosts chasing them. Now they stood together in the baggage claim area, watching the carousel go round, and reality was settling back in like unwanted fog. "Well," Ifeoma said, adjusting her carry-on bag on her shoulder, "it was really lovely meeting you both. Truly." "No." Jujin's shriek was so loud and so sudden that it turned heads all across the terminal. The little girl latched onto Ifeoma's leg like her life depended on it, her face already starting to crumple in that way that meant tears were approximately 3 seconds away. "You can't go. You can't. You didn't finish teaching me the braid, and we were going to talk more. You said we could be friends. You promised." "Jujin," Jae-sung's voice was strained in a way Ifeoma hadn't heard before. "We talked about this, remember? Ifeoma has her own plans. We can't..." "But I don't want her to go." The tears were falling now, fast and furious. Full meltdown mode activated. "She's my friend. She's nice to me. Why does everyone always leave?" Oh God, Ifeoma felt her heart absolutely shatter into pieces. She knelt down, trying to gently pry those small, desperate hands from around her jeans. "Sweetheart, listen to me. I'm not leaving forever. I'm just going to my place. But maybe we can..." "No, I want you to come with us. Please, Ifeoma, please." Jujin was screaming now, and people were definitely staring. "I don't want another nanny who's going to leave. I don't want to be alone. I want you." Security guards were starting to take notice. One of them took a step forward, then seemed to think better of it when he got a good look at Jae-sung's face. Jae-sung looked like he desperately wanted the ground to open up and swallow him whole. "Jujin, you're making a scene," he said quietly in Korean, then switched back to English. His voice was tight with embarrassment and something that sounded like pain. "Miss Ifeoma has her own life. We can't just ask her to..." "I don't care about making a scene." Jujin was full on screaming now, her voice echoing off the terminal walls. "I want her to stay with us. Everyone always leaves and I'm so tired of it." Ifeoma felt tears burning behind her own eyes. This wasn't really about her. She understood that. This was about a little girl who'd been abandoned by her mother, who'd watched nanny after nanny walk out the door, who'd learned way too young that people don't stay. She looked up at Jae-sung helplessly, not knowing what to do or say. He looked back at her, and the expression on his face broke something deep in Ifeoma's chest. Desperation. Pure, raw desperation. Exhaustion. And underneath all of that, buried but still visible, was the faintest spark of hope. Fragile and terrified, but there. "I know this is completely insane," he said very quietly, barely audible over Jujin's sobs. "I know you don't know us. I know we're basically strangers, but..." He swallowed hard and Ifeoma watched his throat work. "Could I at least buy you a cup of coffee? Just 30 minutes. Please, let me try to explain before you walk away." Ifeoma knew what she should do. She knew exactly what the smart, logical choice was. She should say, "Thank you," but no. She should collect her luggage, get in her Uber, and head to her peaceful Airbnb. She should start her nice, quiet, drama-free vacation where she could heal from Chidi's betrayal without getting tangled up in someone else's complicated life. That was the plan. That was the smart thing to do. But Jujin was crying into her jacket like her heart was breaking, and Jae-sung was looking at her like she held the answer to a prayer He hadn't even known he was praying. And something in Ifeoma's chest, the part that hadn't been completely destroyed by Chidi's lies, whispered very softly, "What if you stayed? Just for a little while, just to help this child who needs you." 30 minutes, Ifeoma heard herself say, and the words came out before her brain could stop them. "Coffee, we can talk, and then we'll figure out what happens next." Jujin's head snapped up so fast, Ifeoma worried about whiplash. Hope blazed across her tear-stained face like sunrise. "You'll stay? Really?" "Just for coffee, sweetheart. Just to talk." But Jujin was already smiling like she'd just been handed the moon and the stars and every good thing in the universe. She threw her arms around Ifeoma's neck and held on tight. And Jae-sung, this dangerous man who probably terrified everyone he met, was looking at Ifeoma like she'd just performed an actual miracle right there in the middle of the airport. The airport coffee shop was generic and overpriced, but it had a quiet corner booth where they could talk without the whole terminal listening in. Jujin was finally calm, sitting between them and coloring in a new book that Jae-sung had produced from seemingly nowhere. She hummed softly to herself, occasionally showing them her progress. Purple skies and orange grass, always. Jae-sung ordered them both coffee, black for him, with cream and sugar for Ifeoma, even though she hadn't told him how she took it. He'd just somehow known. "I want to apologize," he started, wrapping his hands around his cup but not drinking. That scene back there was completely unacceptable. Jujin knows better than to behave that way. "She's 5 years old and she's hurting," Ifeoma said gently. "That wasn't bad behavior. That was pain." Something flickered across Jae-sung's face. Surprise, maybe. Or relief that someone understood. "Her mother left us when Jujin was 3 months old," he said quietly, staring down at his coffee. "Gave birth, stayed for 12 weeks, then walked out one morning and never came back. Got married to someone else 6 months later." Ifeoma's heart clenched. "I'm so sorry." "She said she never wanted to be a mother, that she only went through with the pregnancy because I asked her to, but she couldn't do it. Couldn't love a child she never wanted in the first place." Jae-sung's jaw tightened. "I've done my best. Tried to be both parents. But Jujin needs more than I can give her. She needs consistency, stability, someone who won't disappear." "The nannies," Ifeoma prompted softly. 7 in 2 years. Jae-sung finally looked up, meeting her eyes. "They all leave. Some last 3 months, some last 3 weeks. The longest one made it 6 months before she said Jujin was too difficult, too demanding, asked too many questions." His voice hardened. "My daughter isn't difficult. She's lonely. She's desperate for someone to actually see her, not just tolerate her for a paycheck." Ifeoma thought about Jujin on the plane, the way she'd lit up with just a little bit of genuine attention and kindness. "What exactly are you asking me?" she said carefully. Jae-sung took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was measured, like he was presenting a business proposal instead of something that would change all of their lives. "I'm in South Carolina for 3 weeks, maybe less if my meetings finish early. I brought Jujin with me because I had no choice. The last nanny quit 2 days before we left, and I couldn't find anyone on such short notice." He paused. "I saw the way my daughter responded to you on that plane. I've never seen her that comfortable with a stranger. Ever. So you want me to be her nanny for 3 weeks? I want to pay you to spend time with her. Call it whatever you want. Nanny, babysitter, friend. I don't care about titles." His eyes were intense, completely focused on her. "I'll pay you well. Very well. You'll stay in our temporary residence here. Your own room, obviously. All expenses covered. And when the 3 weeks are done, we go back to Korea and you go back to your life. Clean. Simple. Temporary." It wasn't clean or simple, and they both knew it. "Why me?" Ifeoma asked. "You don't know anything about me. I could be anyone." A ghost of a smile touched Jae-sung's lips. "You shared your snacks with a strange child on a plane. You let her color with you and sleep on your shoulder. You braided her hair without being asked. You treated her like she mattered." He leaned forward slightly. "Do you know how rare that is? How most people look at Jujin and see a burden, an inconvenience, a problem to manage?" Ifeoma looked down at the little girl between them, happily coloring away, and felt something twist in her chest. "I came here to get away from complications," she said honestly. "To heal, to be alone." "I understand. And if you say no, I won't push. We'll finish our coffee and you'll never see us again." Jujin's hand stilled on her crayon. She wasn't looking up, but Ifeoma could tell she was listening to every single word. "But if you say yes," Jae-sung continued quietly, "you'll be helping a little girl who desperately needs someone to stay. Just for 3 weeks. That's all I'm asking." Ifeoma closed her eyes. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her. This was a bad idea. She knew it was a bad idea. She'd come to South Carolina to escape emotional entanglement, not dive headfirst into someone else's family drama. But then she felt a small hand slip into hers under the table. She opened her eyes and looked down. Jujin was looking up at her with those big, hopeful eyes that had already seen too much loss for someone so young. "Please stay, Ifeoma," Jujin whispered. "I promise I'll be good. I won't ask too many questions. I'll eat all my vegetables. I'll go to bed on time. I'll be so good if you just please stay." And just like that, Ifeoma's carefully constructed walls crumbled to dust. "Okay," she heard herself say. 3 weeks. Just 3 weeks, and then we all go back to our separate lives." Jujin's face exploded with joy. She launched herself at Ifeoma, wrapping her arms tight around her neck. And Jae-sung, this intimidating man who'd probably never shown real emotion in public in his entire life, closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, they were shining. "Thank you," he said, and those 2 words carried the weight of the world. "You have no idea what this means." But Ifeoma was already starting to suspect that she'd just agreed to something that would change everything. She just didn't know how much. Not yet. If you're sitting there, yelling at your screen right now, drop "stay" in the comments if you think Ifeoma made the right choice. Or run if you think she should have gotten in that Uber and never looked back. And smash that like button because you know this is about to get complicated. The house Jae-sung was renting for his stay in South Carolina was absolutely ridiculous. Ifeoma had tried very hard not to react when they pulled up to the gated property, but her eyes had definitely gone wide. This wasn't a house. This was a full estate, all modern glass and clean lines, sitting on what looked like several acres of perfectly manicured lawn. "It's too much, I know," Jae-sung had said, almost apologetically. But it was one of the few properties available on short notice that had proper security. Security. Right. Because he was apparently the kind of man who needed security. Ifeoma was really starting to wonder what exactly his business entailed. Inside was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, designer furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine, a kitchen that would make any chef weep with joy. Her Airbnb had cost her $40 a night. This place probably cost more per hour than what she would pay in a month. "Ifeoma, come see my room!" Jujin grabbed her hand and started tugging her toward the grand staircase. "It has its own bathroom, and there's a window seat and everything." "Jujin, let Ifeoma see her room first," Jae-sung called after them. "Her room is right next to mine. We can see both." Jujin was already halfway up the stairs, pulling Ifeoma along. The little girl wasn't exaggerating. Her room was beautiful, decorated in purples and whites with that promised window seat overlooking the gardens. And right next door was Ifeoma's room, equally beautiful with soft grays and cream colors, an enormous bed, and an ensuite bathroom that was bigger than her entire bedroom back home. "Do you like it?" Jujin bounced on her toes. "Is it okay? Appa said we should put you in the guest suite, but I asked if you could be close to me instead." Ifeoma's throat felt tight. "It's perfect, sweetheart." "Good. Because now we're basically neighbors and we can have sleepovers and everything." Jujin grabbed her hand again. "Come on. I have to show you my stuffed animal collection. I have 47. The afternoon disappeared in a blur. Jujin gave her the complete tour of the house, which took almost an hour because the little girl had a story about absolutely everything. "This is where Appa almost spilled his coffee the last we came here. This is the chair I like to read in. This is the bathroom I don't like because the light is too bright." They explored the garden, where Jujin showed her every flower and told her their names in both Korean and English. They played hide and seek, which was hilarious in a house this big. They made a fort out of couch cushions in the living room until Jae-sung came home from his afternoon meeting and stood in the doorway with the most bewildered expression on his face. "It's a castle, Appa," Jujin announced proudly, "and we're princesses hiding from the dragon." Jae-sung looked at Ifeoma, who was sitting cross-legged inside the pillow fort with his daughter, both of them grinning, and something in his expression softened completely. "I see. And where is this dragon?" "You're the dragon," Jujin giggled. "But don't worry, you're a nice dragon. You bring us snacks." "Ah, in that case." Jae-sung disappeared into the kitchen and came back with apple slices and peanut butter. He crouched down and passed them through the fort entrance. "For the princesses." "Thank you, Dragon Appa." Ifeoma watched this interaction, watched the way Jae-sung's entire face transformed when he looked at his daughter, and felt something warm settle in her chest. Dinner was surprisingly normal. Well, as normal as dinner could be in a house that costs more than most people's yearly salary. They ordered pizza because Jujin requested it, and they ate at the enormous dining table while Jujin chattered about her day. And then we found a ladybug in the garden, and Ifeoma said we should make a wish on it before it flew away, so I did. And you know what I wished for, Appa? "What did you wish for, Princess?" Jujin looked very seriously at both of them. "I can't tell you, or it won't come true, but it was a good wish." Bath time was an adventure. Jujin had very specific opinions about bubbles. There needed to be a lot. Water temperature, warm but not too warm, and which toys needed to be in the bath. All of them, apparently. "My last nanny said baths should only be 10 minutes, Jujin told Ifeoma while playing with her rubber ducks. "But 10 minutes isn't enough time to play and get clean. That's just silly." "I think you're absolutely right," Ifeoma agreed, sitting on the bathroom floor and helping her wash her hair. "Baths should be fun." "You're the best, Ifeoma. I'm so glad Appa found you on the plane." Something about the way she said it, so simple and trusting, made Ifeoma's heart jump. When Jujin was finally clean and dressed in her pajamas, Ifeoma tucked her into bed. The little girl's room had glow in the dark stars on the ceiling and a nightlight shaped like a moon. "Will you read me a story?" Jujin asked, already snuggling under her covers. "Of course. Which book?" "That one." She pointed to a well-worn book on her nightstand. "It's my favorite." Ifeoma read the entire story, doing different voices for all the characters, which made Jujin giggle. When she finished and closed the book, she started to stand up. "Ifeoma?" "Yes, sweetheart? Will you still be here in the morning?" The question was asked very quietly, like Jujin was afraid of the answer. Ifeoma's heart broke a little bit more. "I promise I'll be here in the morning." "And the morning after that?" "And the morning after that. For 3 whole weeks?" "For 3 whole weeks." Jujin seemed to think about this very seriously. Then she held out her pinky finger. "Pinky promise?" Ifeoma linked her pinky with Jujin's tiny one. "Pinky promise." The little girl's smile was like sunshine. "Okay. Good night, Ifeoma." "Good night, sweetheart." Ifeoma turned off the main light, leaving just the moon. Nightlight glowing softly, and quietly left the room. She closed the door behind her and leaned against the hallway wall, letting out a long breath. 3 weeks. She just promised 3 weeks to a little girl who'd already stolen her heart. 3 weeks with a man whose quiet intensity made her forget why she'd sworn off relationships in the first place. What had she gotten herself into? But when she thought about Jujin's smile, about that pinky promise, about the way the little girl had finally stopped crying and started trusting again, Ifeoma knew she'd made the right choice, even if it was just for 3 weeks. Even if it might break her heart all over again when it was time to leave. For now, she was exactly where she needed to be. So Ifeoma made her choice. She's staying. 3 weeks with a Korean MAFIA boss and his daughter, who desperately needs someone to stay. But here's the question. Can you really keep feelings out of something like this?